friends, Uncle Marv here with another episode of the IT Business Podcast, the show for IT professionals and managed service providers. We help you run your business better, smarter, and faster. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the midst of summer, lots of things going on, but one thing that we do not want to forget about is the National Society of IT Service Professionals or Service Providers. We're trying to be professionals. That's why that word is sticking in my head here. And we are doing another member spotlight. And I am welcoming to the show right now, Diana Giles of Skyline IT Management. Diana, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. How are you today?
I am good. And you?
Doing great.
So it's interesting that when I did some research on you, president and owner there, you originally started your company under another name, you rebranded, but bottom line is you've been doing this for more than 20 years.
Yes. Now you're making me feel old.
That's not the way to put it. You're a vet.
That's right. That's right. You know, I always have to have a caveat just because I feel like, I want to be honest. My business actually was formed in 2004. And of course, before that, I was in IT as well for several years. And I was kind of doing the thing that I'm doing now, except not officially. So I officially formed it in 2004. But it was kind of grew out of me leaving my IT career, but then people still calling me for assistance and things like that. And I was staying home with my kids. So it was very much a side hustle for many, many years. And just kind of slowly grew organically over time. And then I was able to devote a lot more time to it when my kids left the nest. And so then I rebranded and have really kind of changed my focus, or I should say maybe not changed my focus, actually got a focus, as opposed to just like, sure, I can help you.
That's what happens to a lot of us. Yeah, we just started thinking we like computers or we like helping people, and then we just kind of figure it out as we go along, as you did. What are, I guess, now that you have found that focus, and you've been, doing a lot of stuff, cloud-based, 365-based. What are some of the best lessons that you think you've learned over the years?
To trust myself as the expert so that, my clients will also trust me as the expert. They, not that they didn't necessarily, it was just, I was so geared toward a customer service attitude that I didn't take on that role early enough as an expert, and probably, in my younger years would let them kind of determine what they wanted to do, even though that might not be what I thought was the best thing. And so, definitely over years, as I've matured in my IT practice and that kind of thing, I definitely, just shifted completely away from that. And, not that I'm bossy or arrogant about it, but, I definitely, it's just a posture you take, I guess, and a quiet confidence about, I am the expert and these are the best practices and this is what we're going to do. Certainly in some situations you might have to, or I, might have declined to work with somebody if they, wouldn't do certain things. Of course, I've been fortunate. I haven't had to have that really happen too much, but I would if I needed to now.
Now, part of your background is in teaching. So you are, familiar with, leading people in that sense and in a classroom setting. How much of that do you think transfers over into IT? Because you still got to teach people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And the teaching that I was doing as I was faculty when I was getting my master's in telecommunications. So I was teaching at the junior college level, basically telecommunications. So I think where it probably benefits me the most is just being able to communicate well with people. And that is something that, not everyone in our industry, especially, people who are more into the computer side. I mean, not that I wasn't in the computer side, but I guess depending on our geekiness level, I'm not sure quite how to say that. I mean, depending on people's personalities and the way they do things, they might not be comfortable at all talking to people, right? But very, very comfortable in the computer space, whether it's software, hardware, or like we have to do both. I was comfortable with that, of course, but also I was comfortable being in front of people and talking and in that teaching role in front of a room full or even a larger room full of people. If you can do that, that kind of, I feel like, gives you an advantage, certainly when it comes to maybe doing the things you might want to do with your Chamber of Commerce or just doing a training session. One of the things I did during COVID, because everybody was kind of scrambling around and doing different things, I had an enterprise company here in Oklahoma City contact me about doing some Teams 101. Well, we actually took it multiple levels. I did a series of Teams training for them, and this is like a company with over 500 people. And of course, it was online over Teams, but those kind of opportunities and those things, I think if you have that added ability to be able to speak in front of people, whether it's a smaller group or a larger group, I think it just adds to what you're able to do with your IT business. And larger businesses may have people in those roles. They may have the people who can do that and then the other people who don't.
Right. So let me ask this. It's a little bit of a shift, but I think it kind of is a parallel here. One of the things that the NSITSP is about is helping to raise professionalism, promote professionalism. You were doing that in your teaching side there. Have you seen a lot of correlation with what you did there, with what you're doing in IT, and then how does that translate to the rest of the space?
Well, I don't know. I can't, that I don't quite understand what you're talking about as far as like the telecommunications. When I was teaching telecommunications, I mean, it was more about the technology, not, the professionalism.
Here, let me rephrase it this way then.
Okay.
So as a teacher, you are seen with a certain level of professionalism. The people in your class, and authority.
Yeah.
We in IT, for some reason, seem to have that lack of authority in certain spaces where, clients are questioning us about whether or not what we're doing is right for them, or they're questioning our bill, or why do we charge so much, and things of that nature. So that's, I think, what I was trying to get at is what is the correlation between, how the world perceives teachers in a classroom over students as opposed to an IT professional, trying to help a business.
Okay. Right. Well, I think certainly people, depending on their level of IT knowledge, we've probably all dealt with business owners that were more knowledgeable than others. And so you have some where they just feel like they're completely in the dark and they really rely on you and trust you and look for that. And then there's others who may be coming from a bit, maybe they bootstrapped their business and they started small and they're DIY. They've DIY'd so much, it's really hard for them to let go of the reins on those kind of things. I think when they look at us, I think it would be kind of in the same vein if they don't have a mistrust. So if they look at IT professionals as professionals who can really help them and help them with operations of their business, they're going to have that attitude. Where I think possibly, in my opinion, the problem might have come in our industry, because we've probably, all of us, you, me, and the people listening, can think to those businesses where they walked in to do discovery and they couldn't believe what they were discovering with the previous provider or providers, depending on how many they'd had in the past and what had been done. And that to me speaks of, that's the reason I like NSITSP and what we're trying to do, is because it doesn't matter whether you're smaller or larger. There's MSPs of all sizes, IT providers, not even necessarily MSPs, IT providers of all sizes It's the professionalism and how we treat our clients and the types of service we offer, and can they trust us? That we're not going to try to steal the keys of the kingdom just to have a power over them. And, it that to me is what has hurt our industry and why the NSITSP might be, more important than ever. Obviously, security is another reason, but I think when people have been wronged by an IT provider, that gives our industry a black eye. And so that is what I think keeps them from trusting. You know, um, I've experienced it, with people who were considering my services, and they tell stories about what they've gone through. Or somebody, I walk in and they have a $20,000 server that is for a business that really could have just used one that was 5,000.
Right.
I mean, it's and in every industry there's going to be good apples and bad apples, right?
Absolutely. I just was jotting down a whole bunch of industries where, the auto mechanic, the plumber, the
Yeah.
electrician, contractors. I mean, there is a whole television station, HGTV, that is built on, contractors going in and helping you, fix your remodel when people try to do it, or that got screwed over by a previous contractor and things of that nature, and how many of us have that mechanic that we trust, that we've gone to. My mechanic I met in 1995. Dude is the only mechanic in his shop. He and his wife work that shop. I trust him over any other auto shop, over
Right.
the years. And I think that in our industry, the real difference is all those other industries are licensed
Hmm.
or, regulated by, the state or some sort of government. We're not.
Right,
But
right.
it's still the same thing where there needs to be this level of professionalism that, they expect at least a certain type of service
Hmm.
and will be expected to pay for that service.
Right, right. Yeah, and the licensing that, if we talk about in our industry, or even like in CPAs, they have to have, and accountants, they have to have licensing. The only thing that concerns me about the IT industry is because it's so vast, and so, I mean, there's so many different areas of that. And just for an example, like on the Microsoft 365 certifications, uh, those are really geared more toward enterprise.
Right?
And so, that's fine. But what if you're not? What if you're a small business? And so picking the exact exam or certification test or whatever you're going to have to meet these certain requirements, I feel like in IT, it would have to be broken down into different categories, or else there's just certain criteria like about, best practices or insurance, or certain things like that maybe. But I feel like it's and it changes all the time. And so just knowing how I've seen the Microsoft exams change, and they're wrong, and the names are wrong to things, I mean, how are they going to do that for a whole industry? I just don't see how that would be done in this industry. There would have to be some other way to prove your certain set of standards, I
Right.
guess. And the difference between, somebody who's helping businesses with 5 people versus somebody who's helping enterprise, or somebody, that has 250 endpoints. That's
Yeah.
just a vast
The needs are different
difference.
and are just simply not the same. So
Yeah.
let me transition that then to the fact that you are recognized as one of the founding members of the NSITSP. Now, not that you put it together or anything like that.
No, I was
Uh,
on the foundation committee, formation committee, which has
formation.
transitioned to the governance committee.
Okay. So tell us, what was it that got you to join, and what kind of things did you do back in the day?
Well, I joined because of kind of what we were talking about the professionalism, but also for the advocacy. In what they were talking about, when the organization was coming together, was the need, because of so many security incidences and things like that around the country, that when somebody has a breach or an incident, I should say, in their town, what do you do when business owners from the chamber or your news channel or somebody, comes to you and asks you to talk about that? It's good to be able to have talking points around that, and have a group where we can advocate for our industry and say, yes, these things are a concern and this is why we do these things. And, how do you communicate when you're, somebody who deals with computers? Well, how do you talk to this news person who's asking you, these questions? And then how do we promote this professionalism in our industry and keep people from giving our industry those black eyes I was talking about? So that was why, when I heard about it forming and, knew some of the people that were involved in the very, foundation of getting it started, I decided to jump in and join.
So I'm going to throw out a little disclaimer here for those of you that might be listening for the first time and meeting Diana Giles. We have been friends for a few years now, and I started off this interview intentionally as if we were just meeting and starting off. So we have had some conversations over the years about a lot of things.
About a lot of it, yes.
So I can dig a little deeper, I think, in the sense of, asking these questions. What ways do you think our industry can benefit from greater professionalism?
Well, some of them I've kind of, already alluded to. I mean, the impression that we have on to the potential customers or to the public at large. I think it's also helps for just the strains that we have right now, or difficulties, I should say, because of security and how IT and the proper IT and security in place is even more important than ever. So if we elevate our industry to be seen more as a profession, then it's going to be more and more small businesses, when they're kind of, they read these things in the news, they all of a sudden are faced with a compliance that they didn't have before, that now we're going to have to adhere to this. Then they're going to be more likely, I would hope anyway, to look to our industry and find someone who meets certain criteria and who does have that professionalism, as opposed to their, cousin or something like that. Just that they would be, because the same would be true for an electrician, like you said, or a CPA or something. You want somebody with certain criteria and standard to be touching those very important and critical pieces of your business. And so, like we've been dealing with a lot of different things around our home right now, remodeling and redecorating. And, I've said multiple times, that's out of my pay grade. I want to leave that to the professional. I mean, and that is for a reason, because, if you want something done right, then look to the professionals. And so I hope that organizations like NSITSP can help us to elevate that professionalism and the standards of our organization. And, maybe not that the stereotypes aren't fun and funny about, all of us geeks, but maybe to go beyond those stereotypes and, certainly get rid of terms like trunk slammers and things like that.
So I translated the trunk slammer into man in the van, and so advocated about that, and being on the smaller side of the MSP scale. Now and
getting smaller all the time.
What?
Getting smaller all the time, because so many of them are getting so big.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
I'm like, how you can't get any smaller than one. But
no, you're right. But I meant because of the consolidation of
right. That's true. Yeah,
and the growing really large MSPs.
So, well, here's the question then. I mean, with the fact that there's this push to consolidate and, buy out us smaller MSPs and stuff, you've actually been able to establish yourself as, a leader, industry speaker. You're on tour with ASCII. You've actually gotten up and spoken at some conferences about 365 and stuff. How do you think that has helped you in your business?
I don't know. This year, I'm not sure it is. It's because I'm gone so much, but
Yeah,
no,
that's true.
no. I mean, I think there's it gives you, thought leadership, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
um, I think it's something, it certainly doesn't hurt. I can't,
Right.
I mean, I'm speaking at a thing for my chamber this fall. Now, I've already spoken once before for something for the chamber, but it came up because they heard about the other that I'm doing for ASCII. So,
Okay. Well, that's
yeah,
what I meant. I mean, there's got to be something to being able to say that, yes, I'm an industry speaker, I'm an
yeah,
industry leader. And, there's that authority that goes with that. Well, if she's speaking on stage for ASCII, she must be good enough for Oklahoma.
sure, right? But yeah, it helps with, for reasons like that, I would say.
All right. If there was something that you could advise somebody that's listening, not yet a member of the NSITSP, thinking about it, wondering about it, what would you say to them?
I would say to give it a try. It's certainly not a big lift. The membership fee is, I believe, 125 a year. So that's a moderate price. And give it a try, and not just join so that you can say I paid my money and you've got your username and password, but actually check out the blog posts or the website, look for the resources that are there. And I know not everybody can come to all the meetings. I can't even go to all the meetings. A lot of them have been while I've been traveling, but do what you can. And if you feel motivated to join a committee and pitch in a little too, but at least join and try to be a little active and recruit some other people, because when you're talking about advocacy, which is certainly a side of this whole NSITSP thing, and also, promoting professionalism, it takes numbers. And that's really what we need, to be able to have those voices at the table that we're wanting to, when we have to talk about legislation, perhaps.
Yeah. And there are definitely some people out there that have a voice, and bring that to the NSITSP and turn it into a very nice and large choir.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
all right, folks. Well, a few minutes with Diana Giles of Skyline IT Management, a friend of mine, a friend to the channel, and advocate for us all. So, Giles, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that's going to do it, folks. And we'll be back with more member profiles for the NSITSP. And you can check previous ones out at itbusinesspodcast.com. And of course, head over to the website, nsitsp.org, and sign up, be a member, help us out, lend your voice. That's going to do it, folks. We will see you soon. Until next time, holla.